The noon sun scorched Dusty Hollow, dust swirling like smoke. Inside the silver spur, two drunken cowhands cornered a heavy-set woman, jeers cutting sharper than knives. She clutched her shawl, eyes wide, when a child's whisper cracked the silence. "Daddy, can we help her?" From the shadowed corner rose Caleb Boone, the giant cowboy, shoulders filling the doorway, boots grinding wood. He didn't reach for words. He reached for justice. Stay, because what happened next split the saloon in two: fear, respect, and something more. Wyoming Territory, late summer 1877. The noon sun baked Dusty Hollow until the air shimmered like water over stone. Boards of the Silver Spur Saloon creaked and shrank in the heat, paint curling, nails rusting orange. Outside, horses stamped hooves against dust that puffed dry as flour. A tin of oats cost 10 cents now, whiskey 5, beans 12. Prices rose with every wagon train. Flies gathered anyway, buzzing over harness leather and the sour sweat of men who had ridden too far. Inside the Silver Spur, the air hung heavy with stale beer and coal oil lamps that smoked even at midday. The piano sat mute, one chipped ivory key like a broken tooth. Cards lay scattered across a table, coins stacked in uneven towers, their edges black with handling. The barkeep, a lean man in suspenders, wiped glasses though none were clean. Martha Lee sat near the end of the counter. Her broad shoulders stretched calico dyed a faded river green. A bonnet, once blue, now sun-scoured, rested beside her mug of flat beer. She held it with both hands, fingers swollen from laundry, hauling water, chopping wood. No rings, no adornment. She wasn't young, and frontier men valued youth like gold dust. But she carried her weight with tired pride. Two miners staggered from a corner table, chairs screeching across warped planks. Jeb Raleigh and Clyde Dobson, faces raw from sun, clothes black with mine dust, moved like men who had drunk through wages and patience. They had lost silver coins earlier to a ranch hand's lucky streak, and bitterness still boiled. "Look at the cow sitting there," Jeb sneered, pushing his hat back. "Thinks she owns the place." Clyde spat on the floorboards, yellow phlegm catching dust. "Might pay for her drink with that bonnet. You'd trade it, wouldn't you, sweetheart?" Martha stiffened, knuckles whitening on her mug. She did not lift her gaze. Silence often worked better than answering. Out here, words could start feuds. Feuds ended with burials. Yet silence also sharpened cruelty. Jeb slammed the bar. Glasses rattled, whiskey sloshed. "I said, look at me!" His voice cracked the quiet. His hand brushed the walnut grip of his pistol, more habit than thought. From the far corner, a shadow stirred. Caleb Boone sat alone, back to the wall, body vast as a freight bull. He wore worn denim, boots dust-choked, a shirt bleached nearly white. A beige hat shadowed his brow. Dusty Hollow folks knew him. 300 pounds of solid muscle, a man who rarely drank, who spoke less, who carried a Colt. 45 as if it were an afterthought. He had been still, watching, sipping water, not whiskey. But his gray eyes had tracked every twitch. Those who knew stayed clear of him. Most did, not Jeb. The drunk miner yanked his revolver. Steel glinted under lamplight. He staggered, raised it chest high. "Dance, fat lady!" he shouted, voice cracking. The saloon froze. The barkeep ducked, dropping a glass that shattered into jagged stars. Cards lay abandoned mid-hand. Martha's chest heaved. Her wide brown eyes held no tears, only a defiance brittle as glass. Clyde laughed sharp and mean. "Show her, Jeb. Make her squeal." The hammer clicked back. Metal on metal. A sound louder than church bells in that hush. Caleb's jaw flexed. His hand dropped near his holster. His breath slowed, shoulders lifting like mountains in shadow. "Put it down, Raleigh," someone whispered from a table, voice weak as dry grass. Jeb's gun hand shook. Barrel wavered, drifted toward Martha's chest. Sweat ran down his cheek. His finger slid against the trigger. Martha did not beg. She lifted her chin instead, mouth pressed thin. She looked straight at him, as though daring the bullet. The piano seemed ready to strike a funeral chord. Caleb rose. The sound broke like thunderwood splintering beneath massive weight. His chair cracked, one leg shearing off. Dust rose in a soft cloud. The giant stood. His shadow swallowed the bar, swallowed Jeb, swallowed Martha. His hat brim cast his face in darkness, but his eyes glinted like steel under storm. The saloon held its breath. A coin rolled from a forgotten table, spun and stilled. Jeb faltered. The pistol quivered. His lips worked soundless. Clyde shifted a step back, throat bobbing. Caleb said nothing. Words were wasted here. His presence carried its own language. And then it came. A final snap of splintered wood, the death rattle of a chair. Jeb Raleigh's finger twitched on the trigger, his palm slick with sweat. The pistol wavered like a snake ready to strike, yet unsure of its prey. Beside him, Clyde Dobson's grin shrank to a thin, nervous line. The saloon, moments earlier buzzing with drunken banter, now lay silent as a church at midnight. Caleb Boone towered above the wreckage of his chair, his shadow swallowing the lamplight. He didn't rush, didn't lunge. He stood calm, broad chest rising slow, gray eyes fixed on Jeb. Martha Lee clutched her mug tighter, breath locked in her throat. She sat pinned by fear, yet hidden behind the living wall of the giant cowboy. "Put it down," Caleb said, voice low, even, weighty as stone rolling down a canyon. Jeb snarled, forcing bravado through trembling lips. "Don't order me, Boone." She mocked me. His revolver wobbled between Martha's chest and Caleb's broad side. "She didn't," Caleb replied. His gaze never left Jeb, but something colder entered the air. From a corner table, an old rancher leaned forward, whispering to no one in particular. "That man's no drifter. He fought border wars. I'd bet my last coin." The words floated across the silence, lodging in every ear. Martha's eyes flickered, startled. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he showed nothing more. The hammer on Jeb's revolver inched back, metal scraping against metal. Sweat dripped from his brow, catching in his beard. The saloon held its breath. Caleb moved. His hand dropped to the Colt at his hip, motion swift and sure. In one fluid arc, steel cleared leather. A single thundercrack split the air, echoing off walls warped by heat. The shot tore across the space between them. Jeb screamed, clutching his shattered hand as the pistol spun away, clattering onto the planks. Blood pattered dark against the floor. The stink of powder filled every nose. Clyde stumbled backward, nearly falling over a chair. His courage failed, and he bolted for the doors, spurs jangling, curses strangled in his throat. Patrons parted wordlessly, not wishing to share his path. Caleb lowered his Colt with calm precision, sliding it back into the worn holster. "You'll live," he said, tone flat, "but you'll remember." Murmurs swelled, cautious, reverent. Some men nodded approval. Others crossed themselves, unsettled by the swiftness of his hand. In Dusty Hollow, most shooters aimed to kill. Boone's restraint was stranger than death. Martha's lungs finally released their trapped breath. She raised her gaze to Caleb, eyes wide, heavy with gratitude yet carrying something deeper curiosity, maybe even recognition. Her lips parted as if to speak, but she found no words. The barkeep emerged from behind the counter, wiping sweat from his brow. "Get him out before he bleeds on my floor," he muttered, jerking his chin toward Jeb. Jeb staggered to his feet, clutching his ruined hand, and stumbled toward the street. No one helped him. His curses trailed into the sunlight like smoke. Caleb stepped aside, allowing Martha a clear view of the open doors. The saloon exhaled. Glasses clinked nervously. A coin rolled from a forgotten wager, spinning circles before collapsing flat. Martha rose slowly, bonnet clutched in thick fingers. She passed Caleb, pausing only long enough to meet his eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave a single nod. No more. Outside, the town bustled as though nothing had shifted. Wagons creaked under sacks of flour. Children skipped past the telegraph office where notices of cattle drives flapped in the wind. A sign outside the general store listed beans at 12 cents, salt pork at 20, and whiskey at 5, prices steep enough to bite. The world of Dusty Hollow kept turning, yet whispers already rippled across boardwalks. Boone shot it clean from his hand. Never killed him, just stopped him. Fastest I ever saw. Caleb moved down the boardwalk, Martha a step behind, bonnet shading her face. They did not walk together, yet their shadows nearly touched. At the corner water trough, Caleb halted. Horses stamped nearby, drinking greedily. Martha paused as well, bonnet twisting in her fingers. She seemed ready to speak again, but instead she turned, heading toward the boarding house. Caleb resumed his stride down the opposite way, dust curling at his boots. People watched from porches, eyes filled with a mix of awe and unease. He was no ordinary hand. They all knew it now. On the far end of Main Street, an old man swept dust from the steps of the post office. His broom scratched wood as he muttered under his breath, loud enough for neighbors to hear. Boone's got soldier's hands, quick and clean. Border hands, Martha, though already halfway across the street, heard it. She froze, glancing once over her shoulder at Caleb's broad back. Something flickered in her gaze, recognition. Perhaps fear, perhaps something softer. Then she moved on. Caleb did not turn. His jaw clenched, shoulders set. The soldier in him stayed buried, or tried to. As the afternoon sun dropped, shadows stretched long across Dusty Hollow. The silver spur filled again with cautious laughter, though quieter than before. But in an alley near the general store, a man lingered. His face weathered, his coat dusty, his eyes sharp beneath a low-brimmed hat. He watched Caleb Boone disappear down the street. His lips curled around a whisper only he could hear. Soldiers never really leave the war behind. The words dissolved into the hot air, but their weight lingered, a promise that the past was not done with Caleb Boone, not by half. He walked away from Main Street, leaving whispers behind like trails of smoke. The town returned to its rhythm, children playing, wagons groaning, shop doors slamming. But Caleb felt the silence settle heavy across his shoulders. The gunshot had ended one threat, yet awakened another, memory. The road bent toward the edge of town where an abandoned church leaned against the prairie wind. Once painted white, its boards now peeled gray, roof shingles missing, bell long gone. Grass grew high around the steps. Few entered, even fewer prayed inside. Caleb pushed the door with one broad hand, wood groaning, dust stirring into shafts of light. The air smelled of cedar left to rot. Pews lay crooked, hymnals scattered, pages brittle with age. Caleb's boots echoed slow as he crossed to the altar. From his pocket he drew a square of cloth, soft with wear. An embroidered handkerchief, faded blue thread forming a tiny sprig of lavender. He held it in hands that had fired rifles, thrown fists, dug graves. Mary. Her name carved into him deeper than bullets ever could. His wife, lost 3 winters past, when fever swept through the camp. No doctor, no medicine, only the cold comfort of watching her slip away. She had pressed this handkerchief into his palm with her last strength. Promise me, Caleb, no matter what this land makes of you, stay kind. Don't let the war win twice, he had nodded then, voice broken, eyes burning. Swearing to her he would carry it. That promise weighed heavier than iron now. Every time his finger curled around a trigger, her voice returned. And today, in the silver spur, he had spared a man's life, shot his hand, not his heart, because Mary's memory held his aim. Caleb bowed his head, gripping the cloth until it trembled. Dust drifted through a broken window, sunlight painting stripes across the pews. He breathed slow, steady, but the ache never dulled. A man could wrestle wolves, break broncs, survive war, but not outrun love buried too soon. Behind him, a floorboard creaked. He turned, hand brushing instinctively near his colt, but stopped when he saw her. Martha Lee stood in the doorway, bonnet clutched, cheeks flushed from walking the dusty street. She hesitated, eyes darting around the ruined church before settling on him. I didn't mean to intrude, she murmured, voice low. Caleb said nothing. He slid the handkerchief back into his pocket, but too late. Martha had seen. Her gaze lingered where the fabric vanished, her expression shifting. Curiosity, empathy, perhaps recognition of grief. You carry something, she said softly, something heavier than bullets. Caleb's jaw worked. He looked away, toward the altar, where dust motes swirled like ghosts. Everyone carries, he answered. Martha stepped closer, her weight making the old boards creak. She was not graceful, but her presence filled the church in a way that surprised him. She placed her bonnet on a pew, folding thick fingers together. They'll talk, you know, she said. About today. About you. They always do, Caleb replied. But talk cuts deep. I've lived under it. Laughter. Names. Her voice faltered, then steadied. You saved me from worse than words. That matters, Caleb finally looked at her. Her brown eyes met his without flinching. For a moment, silence bridged the space between them. Two souls marked by different wounds, bound by the same land that gave little and took much. He shifted, tucking the handkerchief deeper. I keep a promise, he said, almost to himself. To her? Martha asked gently. Caleb stiffened. He had spoken more than intended, but he did not deny it. Outside, a gust rattled the church walls. The prairie wind carried distant sounds, cattle lowing, a blacksmith's hammer striking iron, a train whistle far away, though no train yet due. Caleb listened, jaw clenched. Martha bent, retrieving her bonnet. She tied the strings under her chin with care, though her eyes never left him. A promise kept is rare here, she said. Most men break them before the ink dries. Caleb gave no answer. She lingered another moment, then turned toward the door. Light framed her figure, wide shadow stretching across warped floorboards. She paused, glancing back once. Thank you again, Mr. Boone. He inclined his head. Her steps faded down the path, swallowed by wind. Caleb stood alone once more, church silent except for the groan of boards. He pressed the handkerchief flat against his chest, beneath the denim, close to his heart. His promise burned steady, but doubt gnawed. Could kindness survive in a land where cruelty thrived? Could one man keep a vow against the tide of dust, whiskey, and greed? He stepped outside, sunlight blinding after the gloom. The prairie stretched endless, gold and cruel, horizon shimmering. Dusty Hollow buzzed below, merchants shouting, children laughing, horses stamping. Life rolled forward, indifferent to his burden. On the boardwalk ahead, Martha walked steady, bonnet bobbing. A pair of cowhands snickered as she passed, whispering behind calloused hands. She did not answer. She kept walking, shoulders squared. Caleb watched from a distance, the cloth burning in his pocket. He turned toward the hitching post, untying his bay gelding. The horse snorted, ears flicking, sensing his mood. Caleb swung into the saddle, leather creaking, spurs jingling. He looked once more toward town. Shadows grew longer, and beyond them loomed more than gossip. On the edge of town, a whistle blew. Not the distant cry of prairie wind, but the sharp blast of iron wheels. A train, unexpected, rolled into view. Smoke billowed, black against blue sky. Dust swirled as brakes screeched, iron grinding against iron. Caleb's eyes narrowed. No train was scheduled till dawn, and on its last car fluttered a tattered flag, edges burned, colors half faded, the insignia of a commander he once knew too well. Caleb Boone reined in his bay gelding, the animal stamping restless as smoke billowed across Main Street. The whistle's cry cut through Dusty Hollow like a knife, sharp and out of place at this hour. Merchants stepped from shops, dusters thrown over shoulders, eyes narrowed toward the depot. Children stopped their games. Even the blacksmith paused mid-swing, hammer hanging, iron cooling on the anvil. The train screeched to a halt. Wheels ground sparks against the rails. Steam hissed, clouding the platform in white mist. Figures moved within it, silhouettes tall and rigid. When the smoke cleared, a man descended first. His boots struck the boards with a measured weight. Cane in hand, though he did not limp. A wide-brimmed hat shaded his face, but Caleb did not need sight of it to know. Horace Blackthorne, once captain, later colonel, always ruthless. The man who had ordered raids along the border, who had traded lives for land, who had sent men into ambushes if the map demanded sacrifice. The man Caleb had followed and regretted. Blackthorne's hair, once dark, now silvered at the temples, yet his posture remained unbent. His coat was pressed, his boots polished, his voice smooth when he spoke. "Dusty Hollow," he announced as though claiming it. Behind him followed 4 men in coats cut long, revolvers heavy at their hips. They carried themselves not as settlers but as soldiers who had never stopped marching. Townfolk shrank back, whispers rising. Caleb slid from his saddle, boots crunching gravel. He tugged his hat lower, but his eyes stayed locked on the man across the platform. Blackthorne turned, as if feeling the weight of that stare, and his smile spread slow. "Well," the colonel said, voice carrying, "if it isn't Boone." The name struck the crowd like a thrown stone. Several heads turned toward the giant cowboy. Whispers, "Boone? Soldier Boone?" Caleb stood firm, jaw tight. "What brings you here?" Blackthorne's smile widened. "Opportunity. Land. Gold. The West still yields for those bold enough to take his cane tapped once against the boards. And for those who remember loyalty." Caleb said nothing. The air thickened. Martha Lee, drawn by the whistle, stood at the edge of the crowd, bonnet low. She clutched her shawl, eyes darting between the 2 men. Something in Blackthorne's presence unsettled her deeper than drunken threats ever had. Blackthorne stepped closer, lowering his voice, though all could still hear. "I hear you've been merciful, shooting hands instead of hearts. That's not the Boone I knew." Caleb's jaw worked. "That Boone's gone." "Gone?" Blackthorne chuckled, shaking his head. "No, son. The West doesn't let men change. It only buries them in their old uniforms." The 4 men behind him shifted, eyes scanning the street, hands near weapons, though none drew. The message was clear. Blackthorne brought power with him, and he intended the town to feel it. The depot master, a thin man in a vest too tight, stepped forward nervously. "Sir, this train ain't on the schedule. Folks weren't expectin'." "Schedules bend to men who matter," Blackthorne cut in, eyes never leaving Caleb. The words hung. Dust swirled. Horses shifted uneasily at the rails. Martha moved a step closer, voice trembling yet strong enough to carry. "This town's no battlefield. Leave your flags in the past." Blackthorne turned his gaze on hers, studying her with the disinterest of a man assessing property. His lip curled faintly. "And you are?" Martha stiffened. Before she could answer, Caleb's voice cut across. "She's not yours to name." The crowd gasped softly. Blackthorne's smile thinned, but he inclined his head, mock polite. "Still guarding strays, Boone? Always did waste your strength on lost causes." Caleb's fists clenched at his sides. Images of burned villages, fallen comrades, Mary's last breath, all pressed forward. But he stood steady. The colonel tapped his cane again. "I'll be holding court tomorrow night in the Silver Spur. I expect to see the town's finest. You, especially, Boone. Old soldiers have debts, and debts must be settled." With that, he turned, climbing back toward the train. His men followed, boots striking in rhythm. Steam hissed anew, swallowing them in white. When it cleared, the flag still fluttered from the last car, ragged, defiant. The train did not depart. It stayed. Iron weight crouched at the edge of town like a predator at rest. The townsfolk murmured, uneasy. Some slipped away, eager to spread word. Others lingered, eyes on Caleb, as though answers might come from his size alone. Martha stepped nearer, her face pale, her breath quick. "You knew him?" Caleb nodded once. The handkerchief in his pocket felt heavier than lead. "What does he want?" she pressed. Caleb's eyes stayed on the flag. "Everything." The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in bands of copper and rose. The whistle shrieked again, long and hollow. Children clutched their mothers, dogs barked nervously, and the town of Dusty Hollow understood its quiet days were done. Caleb Boone turned from the depot, shadow stretching long across the dust. His jaw set hard, his promise to Mary echoing in his mind. Stay kind, don't let the war win twice. But the war had just stepped off a train, cane tapping, eyes sharp, voice polished. And it wore the name Horace Blackthorne. By dusk, the news had spread like prairie fire. A colonel stepped off a train no one expected, men at his back, a flag from wars most would rather forget. Dusty Hollow buzzed with whispers. Some called it opportunity, others doom. Merchants stayed open late, hoping for coin. Mothers shuttered windows, muttering prayers. The silver spur lit up brighter than it had in years. Oil lamps burned hot. Piano keys clattered. Whiskey poured faster than cards could shuffle. Blackthorne had declared a feast, and the town obeyed. Few dared stay away. Caleb Boone arrived late, his broad shoulders filling the doorway. He paused, scanning smoke and laughter. Tables crowded with miners, ranch hands, shopkeepers, even the preacher who never touched spirits. At the center stood Blackthorne, coat immaculate, cane resting against the bar. He raised a glass high, voice booming, "To Dusty Hollow! To rail and gold and the future we'll carve together." Cheers followed, though hollow. His son, Lucian Blackthorne, leaned nearby young, slick-haired, dressed in tailored black. Rings flashed as he lifted his own glass, grin sharp. Caleb moved toward the bar, Martha Lee already there. Bonnet hung behind her chair. She wore a plain shawl, cheeks flushed from heat. Her presence drew stares, some mocking, some pitying. Still, she stood straight. Lucian noticed. His grin widened. He sauntered closer, glass sloshing. "Well now," he drawled, "what flower blooms in this dust?" Mighty large petals, too, laughter rippled from his friends. Martha stiffened, jaw tight. She turned away, but Lucian's hand darted, fingers brushing her sleeve. "Don't be shy, darling. A lady like you deserves company. Maybe you'll ride with me when rails stretch west." Caleb's shadow fell over them. His voice came low, iron under gravel. "Take your hand away." Lucian turned, sneer forming until his eyes met the giant's chest, then climbed higher to Caleb's unflinching stare. For a beat he faltered, but pride swelled. "And if I don't?" The saloon hushed. Even the piano stilled. Blackthorne himself turned slightly, cane tapping once against the floor. Caleb didn't move. His words cut sharper than steel. "Then you'll drink through broken teeth." Gasps stirred. Martha's breath hitched, her eyes darting between them. Lucian laughed too loud, mask slipping. He leaned back, raising his glass high. "A toast, then, to Boone, Dusty Hollow's gentle giant. Defender of wide women." His friends howled. Martha's face burned. She shifted to leave, but Caleb's hand lifted, stopping her gently. He took the glass from Lucian, set it on the bar, and in the same motion slammed the young man's wrist flat. The glass shattered, whiskey spraying. Lucian yelped, struggling, but Caleb's grip held firm. "You'll keep your tongue behind your teeth," Caleb said, voice low enough only nearby ears heard. "And you'll show respect to women who stand straighter than you ever will." Lucian's face twisted. He pulled, failed, pulled again. Finally, Caleb released him. The young man stumbled back, wrist red, pride wounded deeper than flesh. The crowd murmured. Some nodded approval. Others feared the storm brewing. Horace Blackthorne's smile never wavered, but his eyes hardened. He tapped his cane once, twice. "Boone," he called, voice smooth, commanding. "You've made your point. Dusty Hollow is no place for petty squabbles." Caleb turned his gaze on the colonel. Silence weighed heavy. Then he stepped back, giving space. Martha slipped away toward the door, breath uneven. Lucian straightened his coat, fury burning, but his father's hand cut him short. "Not tonight," Blackthorn murmured. Music resumed, forced. Glasses clinked, dice rolled, though the cheer had soured. Caleb remained by this bar, silent, eyes scanning the room. Every laugh rang false. Every shadow seemed longer. Martha waited outside, leaning against the wall, shawl drawn close. When Caleb stepped out, she met his eyes. "You shouldn't have risked it." "They were wrong," he answered simply. "They'll hate you for it," she whispered. "They already do." For a moment they stood in the cool night air, moon rising above rooftops, train smoke drifting like a ghost. Then hoofbeats echoed from the far end of town. Riders 3, maybe 4 slipped down alleys, faces hidden under wide brims. Watching, waiting, Martha noticed. "They're his men," she said. Caleb's hand brushed near his Colt, his jaw clenched. "Then it's begun." The night deepened. Laughter from inside the silver spur clashed with the quiet menace outside. Dust swirled, and in it hung the promise of violence yet to come. Caleb Boone lingered in the street, eyes narrowing as shadows shifted near the livery. Riders melted into darkness, hooves muffled in dry earth. Martha Lee gripped her shawl, uneasy. "They're watching you," she whispered. Caleb adjusted his hat, voice low. "They'll move before dawn." He was right. By first light, word spread that men had ridden toward Red Creek. That narrow valley cut through shale and scrub 2 miles east, its trickle of water feeding prospectors' camps. A few stubborn miners still panned there, old men clinging to hope of silver that had long run thin. Blackthorn's men would squeeze them. Caleb saddled his bay, cinch drawn tight, revolver oiled. Martha appeared, bonnet tied, eyes tired but steady. "You can't go alone." "You're not coming," Caleb answered. "I'm not staying," she countered. "Not while they bleed folks who never held a gun." He studied her, seeing the same stubborn line in her jaw that had faced Jeb Rawley's pistol without flinching. At last he nodded. She climbed into the wagon of a neighbor willing to haul supplies toward the valley. Together they set off. The trail wound through sage and rock, coyotes darting at their passing. Morning sun burned away the night's cool, heat pressing down. When they crested the ridge, Red Creek lay below shallow water glinting, shacks of canvas and wood crouched by its banks. Smoke rose thin from campfires, but other smoke curled thicker, darker. A shack smoldered. Figures gathered near the stream, voices carrying harsh. Caleb urged his horse forward. Martha's wagon rattled behind, driver nervous. Down by the water stood Lucian Blackthorn, coat black, smile cruel. Beside him 3 riders, revolvers drawn, boots wet from the stream. Before them knelt old Ezra Pike, beard white as river foam, hands trembling but eyes fierce. He clutched a tin pan bent from years of scraping gravel. Lucian's voice rang clear. "Sign the deed, old man. Red Creek belongs to the line now. My father will see rail laid, and you'll see coin for your trouble." Ezra spat into the dirt. "Ain't enough coin in hell to buy my land." Lucian's grin hardened. He drew his pistol, silver plating catching sun. "Then your grave gets it." The shot cracked. Birds scattered from cottonwoods. Ezra fell sideways, beard soaking in dust, tin pan rolling into the creek. Water carried it downstream, spinning. Martha gasped from the wagon ridge. Caleb's jaw clenched, rage flaring hot. He spurred his bay, hooves thundering down the slope. Dust rose behind him. The riders turned, surprise flashing. Lucian smiled wider. "Well, if it isn't Boone," he called. "Come to pick through the scraps?" Caleb slid from the saddle before the bay stopped moving. His boots struck earth, revolver in hand. His eyes fixed on Ezra's body, then on Lucian. "You murdered an unarmed man." Lucian shrugged, pistol dangling casual. "He was in the way. Now he's history. Same as you'll be if you keep standing tall. Martha's wagon jolted to a halt behind. She stood, hands gripping the sideboard, face pale but unyielding. "He was a neighbor, a man who fed me when I was hungry," she cried. Lucian's smirk twisted. "Then you can thank Boone for witnessing the future." Land changes hands. Blood makes it official. The three riders spread out, circling Caleb. Their eyes were hard, but unease flickered. Few wished to draw first against the giant. Caleb's revolver tracked slow, steady. His voice rumbled. "Back away!" No one moved. Lucian's laughter split the silence. "You think one man can scare a company? You'll end up in the creek same as him." The air tightened. Sun beat down. Horses stamped. Then a rider twitched, nerves breaking, revolver jerking upward. Caleb fired once. The man's gun spun away, his hand torn bloody. He screamed, dropped to his knees. The other two hesitated. Lucian's grin faltered, but he raised his own pistol. "Shoot him!" He barked. They didn't. Dust swirled, and in it lay fear. Caleb's aim never wavered. "Take him back to town," he ordered, voice steel. "Tell Blackthorn his war's begun." For a moment, silence held. Then one rider grabbed his wounded comrade, hauling him onto a saddle. The other followed, retreating fast, dust trailing. Lucian alone remained, pistol still leveled. His face burned red. "You humiliated me twice, Boone. Once in the spur, now here. That won't stand." Caleb stepped closer, revolver raised. "Walk away, Lucian." Lucian's eyes flicked toward Martha, watching from the wagon. Spite twisted him. "Maybe I'll walk toward her." Caleb's voice thundered. "Don't!" Lucian froze. His finger tightened on the trigger, but something in Boone's eyes stopped him. For the first time, the young man's grin cracked. He spat into the dust, lowering his pistol. "This isn't over," he hissed. Then he swung onto his horse, galloping hard toward town, cloak snapping in the wind. Silence settled over Red Creek. Only the stream trickled, carrying Ezra's tin pan away. Martha climbed down from the wagon, skirts brushing dust. She knelt beside the fallen prospector, tears streaking her cheeks. Caleb stood over them, revolver lowering slowly. He looked at Ezra's still face, then at the blood soaking the dirt. His promise to Mary seared hotter than ever. "Stay kind. Don't let the war win twice." But kindness seemed thin in the face of such cruelty. He holstered his Colt, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the horizon where Lucian vanished. His voice was low, meant for himself, but carrying to Martha. "I'll bury him proper. And then I'll settle this debt." The sun blazed overhead, shadows short, heat merciless. Red Creek glimmered, red not just from stone but from blood spilled into its waters. And from the far ridge, unseen, another rider watched. Not Lucian, not Caleb, but a figure cloaked in dust, gaze cold. He turned his horse back toward Dusty Hollow, spurring hard, carrying news that would feed Blackthorn's fire. By dusk, the valley lay behind. Caleb and Martha returned slow, wagon creaking beneath Ezra Pike's shrouded body. Dust clung to their skin, sweat streaked with grief. No words passed. Silence carried more weight than speech. In town, doors opened, faces leaned from porches. Men touched hats, women pressed hands to lips. Dusty Hollow had seen death before, but the sight of Ezra stiff in the wagon bed stung deeper. He was one of their first settlers, stubborn as stone, now cut down for refusing to sell. Martha stepped down, voice shaking. He wouldn't yield. Caleb met the stairs, hard and steady. Lucian Blackthorn pulled the trigger. Remember that gasps rippled, anger hushed but alive. Some backed away, unwilling to speak against Blackthorn aloud. But eyes hardened, fear mixed with fury. Night fell heavy. Oil lamps glowed behind shutters. Music thudded faint from the silver spur. But an unease threaded every street. Caleb watered his bay, hands trembling though his face stayed iron. Martha brought bread left by Mrs. Kavanaugh, laid it untouched on his table. "Eat," she urged. He shook his head. Then came the smell. Acrid, wrong. Not chimney smoke, but sharper, oily. Caleb stiffened, nose flaring. He stepped onto the porch, eyes narrowing north. Orange flickered low against the sky. Bells clanged frantic. Voices shouted, "The schoolhouse!" Someone screamed. Caleb was already in the saddle before the word finished. Martha scrambled after, shawl slipping, fear sharp in her cry. Hooves hammered dirt, sparks flew as the bay lunged. At the edge of town, flame devoured wood. The schoolhouse roof roared, beams snapping. Smoke billowed thick, choking the night. A bucket line had formed, men and women passing water hand to hand, but heat drove them back. Children clustered nearby, some sobbing, soot streaking small faces. Mrs. Hollis, hair gray, dress scorched, clutched two girls. Her voice broke. "Not all are out!" Caleb's chest crushed inward. "Who?" "Tommy, Lily, and—" Her eyes flooded. "Martha, your niece Mary's with them." Martha staggered, hand to her mouth. "God, no!" Caleb swung down, eyes slitted against smoke. "Which side?" "Back room!" Mrs. Hollis sobbed. They didn't come through with the others." Flame licked higher, windows shattering. The front collapsed inward with a scream of timbers. Heat blasted, blistering skin. No entry there. Caleb circled, boots pounding, coat pulled over mouth. Around back, door half blocked by fallen beams, flames gnawing edges. Through gaps, faint coughing. He braced, heaved, muscles straining. The beam groaned, shifted, crashed aside. Firelight carved his figure, giant shadow thrown across dirt. He plunged inside. Smoke clawed his lungs. Vision blurred. He dropped to his knees, crawling low. Desks toppled, maps burned on walls. Somewhere ahead, a weak cry. "Mr. Boone!" He surged toward it. The storage closet door jammed, smoke curling out. Tiny fists pounded faintly. Caleb slammed shoulder once, twice. Wood split. Door burst. 3 children huddled, eyes wide, soot blackening faces. Mary gasped. "We couldn't get outdoor stuck." "No," Caleb rasped. "Someone stuck it." He saw the heavy chair wedged outside, scorch-marked. Deliberate. Rage flared. No time. He gathered them, arms like iron. "Hold on." Breathed through cloth, he wrapped them in his coat, dragging low. Overhead, a beam sagged. With a scream of nails, it fell. Caleb twisted, shielding the children, weight slamming across his back. Pain lit white. He grunted, heaved, forced upward. Wood rolled aside, flame spitting sparks. "Go!" He shoved them toward a broken window. One by one he lifted, coughing, skin blistering. Tommy out first, then Lily. Mary clung, sobbing. "Don't leave me!" "Never," he promised, lifting her through. Then he turned, last. Fire roared, roof groaning above. He lunged, dove through the gap as the ceiling crashed behind. He hit dirt hard, rolling, flames licking boots. Hands grabbed, dragging him clear. He coughed, vision swimming. Martha knelt, clutching Mary, sobbing into her hair. The girl cried, but lived. Townsfolk cheered, ragged, relief-breaking. But Caleb's eyes were cold. He'd seen the chair. He'd heard the locked door. This wasn't accident. Someone had set fire, trapped children inside. Lucian's shadow loomed, though Caleb hadn't seen his face here. He staggered up, ignoring pain. "Buckets!" he barked. "Save what's left!" The line resumed, desperate, though half the roof was gone. Martha touched his arm, voice low. "They meant to kill them. To break us," he nodded once, jaw like stone. "Then they'll answer." Flame lit the night, painting faces in red. Sparks carried on wind, falling over town like fiery snow. Caleb stood among them, chest heaving, eyes burning hotter than the blaze. And above the crackle, faint but clear, came laughter carried on the wind, mocking, cruel, vanishing into darkness. Caleb turned, scanning shadows. Nothing, only night, only fire. But he knew Dusty Hollow was under siege, and he would not bend. The flames sank lower, devouring themselves. Bucket lines dwindled, arms too weary to lift. Ash drifted across the square like black snow, clinging to faces streaked with soot and sweat. The schoolhouse stood half a ruin, roof gone, beams collapsed inward, only the stone foundation holding shape against the night. Mothers gathered children, checking limbs, brushing hair, whispering thanks. Men leaned on knees, coughing smoke from lungs, eyes bloodshot. The town breathed like a wounded animal. Martha held Mary close, rocking gently, shawl wrapped tight though the air still scorched. The girl clung silent, cheek pressed against Martha's chest, tears leaving streaks on soot. Tommy and Lily sat nearby, shivering, watched by Mrs. Hollis, who whispered prayers between coughs. Caleb loomed beside them, shirt charred, back raw where the beam had struck, but his stance unbroken. His gaze swept the crowd, weighing silence, tasting fear. A boy stepped forward, thin shoulders trembling. His name was Daniel, son of the telegraph clerk. His voice wavered. "Sheriff, we heard laughing. Before the roof went, he swallowed. Somebody outside. They slammed the back door, wedged it. Then they laughed." The square froze. All eyes cut toward Caleb. The boy's words carried the weight of truth no child could invent. Martha's breath caught. "Then it wasn't. No accident," Caleb finished, voice flat. "Someone wanted them dead." Murmurs rose, sharp, fearful. Neighbors whispered names, glancing toward the ridge, the tracks, the silver spur, where strangers had drunk heavy earlier. Suspicion curled like smoke. Ezra Pike dead for land. Children nearly burned alive. 2 strikes. The town felt hunted. Caleb lifted one of the scorched beams with bare hands, tossing it aside as if clearing the wreckage cleared doubt. Lucian Blackthorne hired guns. Maybe he gave the word, maybe not. But his shadow's on this fire. A man in the line shook his head fast. "Careful talk, Boone. That family owns half the iron comin' through Wyoming. Cross them and Dusty Hollow will be flattened like sod under hoof." Caleb's eyes cut to him, cold as steel. "It already is. You want to wait until we're ash?" The man faltered, silence falling heavy again. A scream cracked from the far side of the ruin. Martha ran, skirts whipping cinders. In the rubble near the collapsed front, a small body lay half-buried beneath timbers. Not a child, an old man. One of the town's drifters who'd taken shelter near the stove that evening. He hadn't made it out. "God help us," Martha whispered, pressing hands to her mouth. The crowd swelled around. Some crossed themselves, others turned away. A life gone, overlooked. The fire had claimed more than classrooms. Caleb knelt, lifting the man's body with rough gentleness. He stayed, helped the young ones to the door. He was the one left behind, the word spread, heavy as stones. Guilt cut deep. Even survival felt stolen. Martha touched Caleb's burned sleeve. "You can't hold this alone." His jaw tightened. "I can. I will," but his eyes betrayed more memories of war. Men lost in smoke, comrades swallowed by flame while orders drove him forward. Dusty Hollow was no battlefield, yet the air smelled the same. Burned wood, burned hope. Deputy Harlan pushed through, hat askew, face pale. "Sheriff," he panted, "I rode the East Ridge. Found tracks, 4 horses. Heavy load dragged between. Kegs may be coal oil," Caleb muttered. "Brought in and spilled." Harlan nodded grim. "Led straight back to the rail camp." The townsfolk gasped. Martha's arms tightened around Mary. Eyes shifted, fear giving way to anger. Caleb straightened, voice ringing over crackle of embers. "You wanted proof? There it is. Blackthorne's men lit this fire. Not chance, not accident. A message someone spat into ash. Another cursed low, but none stepped forward with defiance. The power of the railroad loomed too large. A silence stretched until Martha broke it. "And what do we do now? Wait for them to torch our homes? Our church? Take our graves?" Her cry pierced deeper than Caleb's steel words. Women nodded, clutching children. Old men muttered prayers, turning to curses. Caleb's hand fell to his revolver, not drawing, just resting there. We stand. We don't bend, the declaration rippled. A vow, fragile but fierce. Yet doubt clung. Could a handful of ranchers and shopkeepers stand against Blackthorn's empire? Harlan shifted uneasily. Sheriff, men whisper you brought this war. That by standing tall, you paint a target on us all. Caleb's gaze fixed him. I didn't bring it. It rode in on steel wheels and greed, but I'll damn well answer it. The night pressed heavy. Flames sank to embers, casting long red shadows. Families drifted back to houses, leading weary children. Some looked at Caleb with gratitude, some with fear. He felt both. Martha lingered. They'll come again. Harder, Caleb nodded. Then we'll be ready. But when she turned, leading Mary away, his eyes burned into the ruins. Ready. The word felt hollow. The town's spirit was brittle. One more blow might shatter it. Far off, a coyote howled, sharp against the silence. Caleb stood alone in ash, a giant dark against dying fire. And somewhere beyond the ridge, unseen riders gathered, laughter echoing low. The night was not done. By dawn, Dusty Hollow stirred restless, like a body waking with bruises. The schoolhouse smoldered still, embers coughing pale smoke into chill air. Mothers carried water pails, dousing blackened stumps until steam hissed. Children wandered silent, clutching scorched slates or half-burnt books, eyes too old for their years. Even the roosters crowed timid, as though fire had licked their throats. Caleb Boone walked through ash barefoot, boots slung by hand. His shirt clung stiff with soot, back aching, but he moved steady. Each charred plank, each twisted nail, marked not just ruin, but warning. Blackthorn's mark. He felt it deep as a scar. At the well, townsfolk gathered, whispers sharp. Some urged caution, others muttered vengeance. A rancher spat into dust. What chance have we got? He's got men, money, law at his hip, another answered. We've got Boone. He pulled kids from hell itself, eyes turned. Caleb felt weight press on shoulders broad as timbers. He said nothing, only nodded, jaw set. Martha approached. Shawl pulled tight, though morning sun crept warm. Mary clung at her side, face pale but eyes steady. The town looks to you, Martha whispered. But they're scared, Caleb. Scared down to their bones. I know, he rumbled. Fear's half the fire. Other half's greed. Both lit by Blackthorn. Before she could answer, hoofbeats clattered sharp. Deputy Harlan rode hard, dust pluming behind. He reined in, breath ragged. Sheriff Council's called meeting. Blackthorn's there already. Wants route drawn today. Says tracks cut west, straight through. Through what? Caleb asked, though suspicion gnawed. Harlan's throat bobbed. Through the cemetery. A hush fell. Martha's hand tightened on Mary's shoulder. Caleb's eyes darkened. Heavy storm gathering. Tell them I'm coming. The council hall stank of oil and sweat. Lamps burned, though morning light streamed, casting uneven glow across maps tacked on pine boards. Horace Blackthorn stood at head table, coat immaculate, silver watch chain glinting. Around him clustered merchants, ranchers, the mayor pale with nerves. Caleb pushed through doors, frame filling space, dust still on skin, boots heavy. Silence rippled, councilmen shifting uneasily. Boone, Blackthorn greeted smooth, voice cut glass. Glad you join us. We're speaking future of your fine town. Caleb's gaze dropped to map. Red line slashed across terrain, bold, final. It carved straight west, slicing through churchyard, through wooden crosses weathered gray, through stones carved by grieving hands. You aim to split the dead from their rest, Caleb said low. Blackthorn smiled thin. Relocation with honor. Union Pacific pays costs, fine ceremony, finer stones. Progress requires compromise. Compromise, Caleb echoed, tasting ash. You torch children's schoolhouse, Now you dig up graves. Murmurs flared. Blackthorn's eyes cooled, but he spread hands. Sheriff, mind accusations. The fire tragic, yes, but proof? None. Rumor breeds unrest. Ideal in fact, Caleb's fist struck table, maps quivering. Fact is, Ezra Pike dead for land. Fact is, oil kegs tracked from your camp to ashes here. Fact is, you bury truth under money. Councilman shifted, eyes darting. The mayor stammered, Sheriff, calm yourself. Calm, Caleb thundered. You'd see your father's wives, children dug from rest so trains run quicker? Is that calm? Blackthorn's voice dropped, iron beneath velvet. And what of lives prospering? Rail brings trade, wealth, survival beyond cattle and dust. Would you deny that? Caleb leaned close, shadow swallowing lantern light. I'd deny selling soul for coin. Deny selling bones for a breath. Silence hung, sharp as drawn blade. Then Blackthorn straightened, eyes narrowing. You speak with soldiers' fire, Boone. But soldiers forget, they obeyed once. They obeyed me, the words cut, pulling ghosts from Caleb's marrow. Smoke of past battles curled in memory men sent forward into slaughter, while Blackthorn's orders whispered cold. You used men like nails, Caleb growled. Driven till heads split. Blackthorn's gaze hardened, mask slipping. And built victory. Graves are cost of empire, Boone. Always were. A shiver passed the room. Some councilmen looked away, others pale with shame. Martha, standing at rear, drew Mary close, face etched with horror. Caleb's hand flexed on table. He saw again children coughing in smoke. Ezra stiff in wagon. Graves weathered on hill. He saw war's dead faces. Comrades fallen for maps inked by men like Blackthorn. Empire, Caleb said slowly. You mean gold? The word struck like hammer. Blackthorn's lip twitched before mask slid back. But councilmen stirred. Whispers hissed. What vein runs under cemetery? Caleb pressed, voice low but carrying. Why tracks cut there? Not easier ground north. You know. Say it. For first time, Blackthorn faltered, silver eyes flicking. Then calm returned. Speculation. Engineers speak of ore, perhaps. Progress. Nothing more. But Caleb saw crack. And Martha saw too, eyes narrowing, knowing. He straightened, towering. You'll not touch graves. Not while I stand, tension bristled. Blackthorn's hand tapped watch chain. Click of gold against gold. Then you stand against more than me. Against progress itself. Then so be it, Caleb answered. Silence bled heavy. Even lamps seemed to gutter. Blackthorn's gaze locked his, two wills clashing without blade yet sharper than steel. At last Blackthorn's smile thinned. We adjourn. For now he swept maps from table, parchment crackling like brittle bones. His men gathered, boots thudding. Before leaving, he paused, voice quiet, lethal. Boone, you fight war already lost. Caleb's eyes burned. I fight so Dusty Hollow breathes free. Not chained, Blackthorn's coat swayed as he vanished through door. Men trailing. Council scattered uneasy, whispers of trade, fear, doubt. Only Martha lingered, Mary's hand clutched. She stepped to Caleb, voice low. He won't stop. No, Caleb said. Neither will I. He turned toward door, toward sun glaring hard. The town buzzed behind, brittle as dry grass. Wind carried scent of smoke still, mingled with iron tang promise of graves disturbed, gold pulled from earth, blood spilled. On ridge far off, riders moved like ants, shadows lengthening. Dust swirled in their wake. Dusty Hollow braced, though it scarcely knew for what. Caleb Boone stepped into light, broad shoulders squared. War was not done. Not for him, not for this town. And in wind's whisper came echo shovels biting earth, graves opening. Caleb Boone heard it even after he left the council hall. Not real sound, not yet, but phantom, carried on dust that swirled over boardwalk. He strode through town, jaw iron, boots pounding planks that creaked like bones. Behind him, Martha's voice called faint, Mary clutching her skirts. But when he turned at his cabin door, the porch was empty. He froze. Shadows lay long, lamp unlit, though she'd said she'd rest with Mary safe. He pushed inside. Bed bare, shawl gone. The silence struck deeper than gunfire. "Martha?" His growl filled rafters. No answer. On table lay scrap of paper, hastily scrawled. "If you want her back, come alone." Ink smeared, dust pressed into fibers. His hands crushed the note near breaking. "Damn them!" Deputy Harlan burst in, breath ragged. "Sheriff, I saw 2 riders, South Trail. They had a woman slung between Caleb's blood-iced." "Mine Road?" Harlan nodded, grim. "Toward Old Shaft by Cemetery Ridge." Caleb grabbed rifle, checked revolver loads with steady clicks. "Stay with Mary. Guard her like blood, but Sheriff—" "Do it!" Caleb barked, eyes flashing fire. Harlan stiffened, then nodded. The road wound barren past tumbleweed and boulders pale under moon. Caleb rode hard, hooves sparking stone, cloak of dust trailing. The night bit cold, carrying scent of sage and old sorrow. The abandoned mine loomed ahead, black mouth yawning against hillsides scarred by failed diggers. Around it, graves scattered, crosses tilted, markers eaten by weather. Wind whistled hollow, whispering names long gone. A lantern bobbed faint at entrance. 2 horses tied nearby. Martha's shawl snagged on saddle horn, cloth torn. Caleb dismounted silent, crouched in scrub. He studied ground. Fresh prints, boots dragging weight inward. He smelled oil, faint, and sweat not Martha's. From darkness came a voice, deep, edged with bitterness. "Come in, Boone." "Doors open!" Caleb rose, rifle low but ready. He stepped into shaft where lantern light guttered. The air stank damp, mold, and iron. Shadows danced on rock walls carved by men long dead. Chains clinked faint. Martha sat bound against timber support, hair loose, eyes fierce despite gag. Relief flickered, but Caleb held gaze steady on figure beyond. Not Lucian. The man was lean but broad, uniform tatters still clinging through gray coat stripped of insignia. A scar carved his cheek, white rope across skin darkened by years. His revolver gleamed steady in hand. "Name's Captain Vance Crow," he said low. "You might not recall, but I recall you. Cold Harbor. Your raid slaughtered my men. My brother bled in mud while you vanished ghost-like. I swore if I lived I'd find you." Caleb's jaw clenched. "War's done." Crow's laugh scraped harsh. "War never ends. It changes uniforms. Blackthorn funds me now." "Your blood's the coin." Martha shook her head hard, eyes pleading. Caleb stepped forward, boots grinding grit. "You want me," Caleb said. "Let her go." Crow's grin bared teeth. "She stays." "Insurance. Men like you fight harder when something breaks behind." From shadows, 2 more shapes emerged, rough men, rifles leveled. Caleb's heart slowed, soldier's rhythm returning. 3 enemies, 1 captive, narrow shaft. No margin for mistake. Crow paced, gun never wavering. "Funny, Boone. They call you hero, sheriff, protector. But I know truth. You were knife in dark, sent by Blackthorn himself. Did you tell your town you slit throats while they slept?" The words echoed cruel, Martha's eyes widening. Caleb's silence was answer enough. Crow leaned close, whisper carrying. "Blackthorn betrayed you too, you know. Sent units into meat grinder while he polished metals. You're nothing but his hound." Still chained, Caleb's hand flexed on rifle. Rage burned but steady. "Then tonight the chain breaks." Crow's pistol cocked sharp. "We'll see." The lantern sputtered, shadows twisting. Caleb shifted weight, mind measuring angles, timing heartbeats. The mine groaned, timbers creaking as if earth itself held breath. Outside, wind picked, scattering dust across graves. A wolf howled from ridge, lonely and long. Inside, the standoff carved silence thicker than stone. Martha's muffled cry broke it. Her eyes locked on Caleb, not with fear, but trust. Silent plea, hold. Survive. Crow sneered, circling. Tomorrow they'll find you dead here, Boone. Dusty Hollow will know its sheriff bled like all men. Blackthorn will claim what he wants. Caleb's voice was quiet thunder. Maybe, or maybe tomorrow they find you rotting in this shaft, forgotten as bones outside. The men shifted, nerves flickering. Crow's grin faltered, only for breath. Enough! Caleb moved. Rifle swung, stock smashing lantern. Darkness slammed down, sudden and whole. Gunfire roared, muzzle flashes strobing cave walls. Martha screamed behind gag. Sparks showered rock. When echoes died, only wind spoke, whistling through shaft. Dust hung, acrid. Somewhere in dark, Caleb's breath steady, gun ready. And Crow's voice hissed low, closer than before. War's not done, Boone. Not by half, the words hissed across blackness, rattling timbers, sinking into Caleb's marrow. Smoke clung thick, gunpowder tang sharp in his throat. Lantern lay shattered, shards glittering faint under moonlight that leaked thin through cracks above. Every sound sharpened the drip of water, rustle of gravel, Martha's muffled breath. Caleb steadied, revolver low, senses spread wide. He counted heartbeats. 3 men had stood with Crow. Now silence, either dead or waiting. Shadows swallowed all. Boot scrape left. Caleb spun, fired. Spark lit jagged wall. A cry, body falling. Stone drank blood. 2 left. Crow's laugh came closer. Still fast, still deadly. Same as at Cold Harbor. The name slammed like hammer. Cold Harbor mud. Smoke. Screams of men fed into cannon fire. Caleb had buried it deep. Crow dug it up like corpse. Another shot flared, whizzing past ear. Caleb dropped, rolled, felt grit grind wounds. He rose behind support beam, chest heaving slow. Voice low, controlled. That battle took hundreds. You blame me? Crow's tone sharpened. You led knife team. You cut lines, left us blind. Then Blackthorn pushed us into slaughter. You walked away ghost. My brother didn't. From dark, a memory surfaced. A surgeon's tent, lamp swaying, orders whispered target inside. Caleb's bullet through canvas, shadow falling. He never knew face. Now Crow gave it. Brother, surgeon, unarmed. You killed him, Crow spat. And Blackthorn praised you for it. You think you broke free, but you're still his hound. Silence pressed. Martha shifted, ropes scraping timber. Her gag muffled plea. Caleb's chest ached. He wanted to deny, but truth lay heavy. He had obeyed. He had killed. Boots rushed. Crow lunged from dark, blade flashing. Caleb's revolver knocked aside, steel ringing stone. Pain burned forearm. They grappled, massive shadows colliding. Crow strong, desperate. Caleb stronger, steady. They crashed against beam. Dust rained. Crow slashed wild, knife-grazing ribs. Caleb grunted, fists hammering. One strike split Crow's lip, blood spattering. Still he laughed, broken, feral. Blackthorn betrayed you, he snarled. Told us himself your unit bait. Sacrificed to pull Confederates from ridge. He signed your death. But you lived. That eats him worse than grave. The words froze Caleb mid-swing. Memory twisted. Orders vague, maps marked wrong, men screaming as artillery chewed earth. He had believed error, but Crow's rage bore truth. Blackthorn hadn't erred, he'd planned. Crow's knife stabbed for throat. Caleb twisted, locked wrist, slammed into stone till blade clattered free. They rolled, fists, boots, dust choking. Martha cried, voice cracking past gag. Her fear cut sharper than steel. Caleb surged, old soldier rising. He pinned Crow, fist cocked. One strike could end it. Crow spat blood, grin cracked. Do it! Kill me. Same as before. Same as always, Caleb's fist trembled, veins bulging. He saw comrades' faces, war ghosts, Martha's wide eyes. He froze. "No," he growled. "Not Blackthorn's hound. Not anymore." Instead, he slammed Crow's head to stone, knocking him limp. Breath roared in Caleb's chest. The mine hushed but for Martha's sobs. He staggered, cut her bonds, pulled Gag free. She gasped, voice raw. "Caleb, you're bleeding." Later, he hauled her close, steadying. His back burned, ribs stung, but grip was iron. Footsteps echoed sudden. Not Crow's men, more boots, many. Lanterns bobbed down shaft. Shadows stretched long. Blackthorn's colors glinted on coats. Martha's breath hitched. "They're here." Caleb tightened hold on rifle. Crow stirred faint, blood seeping, grin still ghosting lips. "See? He comes, he always comes." "You'll never bury him," lantern light grew, swallowing dark. Voices barked orders. Guns cocked. Caleb's eyes burned fierce. War ghosts whispered. Truth clawed free. Blackthorn had betrayed him once, fed men into fire. Now he dug graves for Dusty Hollow. The duel in dark was done, but war waited outside. Larger, hungrier. Caleb steadied Martha, chambered round, eyes steel. "This ends tonight." The mine shook with boots, light spilling harsh. Blackthorn's men closed in. Caleb Boone squared shoulders, every scar burning like brand. Not soldier, not hound. Sheriff, protector. And the fight was only beginning. Boots thundered, lanterns flared, shadows spilled through the mine mouth, rifles glinting, voices barking orders. Caleb Boone stood tall in the glow, rifle steady, Martha at his side. Behind him, Vance Crow stirred on the floor, blood wetting his temple, grin still curling lips, even unconscious. Blackthorn's men fanned wide, barrels raised. One shouted, "Drop it, Boone!" Caleb's chest rose slow. He set rifle butt to ground, but did not release. "Woman leaves with me. The rest you want. Take it up with me. Not her." Martha's breath trembled, but she lifted chin. "I'll not cower." Lantern light parted. Horace Blackthorn himself strode in, silver hair gleaming, coat immaculate despite dust. His gaze swept seen the limp crow, the bound timbers. Caleb burned and bleeding yet unbroken. His lips thinned. "Boone," he said, voice polished steel. "You make habit of interfering." Caleb's answer came low, gravel deep. "You make habit of burning what you can't buy." Murmurs passed among men. Blackthorn raised hand, silencing. He stepped closer, eyes glinting like coins. "I should order your death. Yet here you stand, stronger than 10, saving children, saving women. Dusty Hollow whispers your name like him. That kind of legend, Boone, can be bought." Harnessed, he reached into coat, drew parchment sealed with Union Pacific crest. "Join me. Sign this. You'll be my overseer here, security chief, protector. Riches, power, schools rebuilt finer than before. The cemetery moved with pomp, gold mined beneath funding future. You and your companion," his eyes flicked to Martha, "will want for nothing." The offer hung heavy, echoing on stone. Martha's gaze darted to Caleb, fear and hope twisted. Caleb's jaw clenched. He remembered Ezra Pike falling, schoolhouse aflame, graves whispered desecration. He remembered Crow's words, ambush at Cold Harbor, betrayal, and he saw children coughing in smoke. Martha's shawl torn on saddle. He spat in dust. "Some land don't sell. Not for coin, not for crown, not for hell." Blackthorn's face hardened, mask cracking. "Think carefully, Boone. You defy me, your town dies. You accept, they thrive. Do you truly mean to martyr them all?" Caleb stepped forward, shoulders broad as gates, voice iron. "I mean to see them live free." Silence knifed. Men shifted, rifles twitching. Martha's hand brushed Caleb's sleeve, grounding him. Blackthorn studied him long, then exhaled sharp. "So be it." He turned, cloak snapping. "Chain Crow, Patch his wounds. He'll hang as traitor to both sides. He paused, gaze cutting Caleb one last time. And you watch Dusty Hollow burn when I return with fire larger than you can quench. He strode out, men following, dragging Crow's limp body. Lanterns bobbed away, leaving dark swallowing again. Caleb and Martha stood alone in cavern, only echo of boots fading. She touched his face, fingers trembling. You could have taken it. Wealth. Safety. He looked at her, eyes shadowed yet steady. At price of graves, of children, of soul. Number. I'd rather starve upright than feast crawling. Her eyes brimmed. She whispered, Then you're no one's hound. You're your own man. He pulled her close, forehead resting against hers. Long as I breathe, this town stands. Outside, dawn broke pale over Dusty Hollow. Smoke still curled from ruins, but light touched graves, touched river, touched church bell bent but unbroken. Caleb Boone walked from mine with Martha at his side, dust swirling around boots. Behind them, earth whispered, chains rattled, war ghosts fading but never gone. At ridge he stopped, gazed across valley. Children ran, chasing stray chickens. Laughter cracked through smoke. Town bent, scarred but breathing. He felt ache in ribs, cut on brow, weight of years. Yet hope stirred. Martha's hand slipped into his, warm, firm. She looked up, voice quiet but fierce. What now? He tightened grip, eyes fixed on horizon where tracks glinted cold. Now we dig in. We hold. Dusty Hollow don't belong to Blackthorn. It belongs to its dead, its living, its yet unborn. And I swore by all I'll not see it sold. Wind carried words across fields, over graves, into town square where folk gathered weary. They lifted heads, hearing oath though he spoke low. And so the giant cowboy stood, dust on shoulders, woman beside, vow burning. Not soldier, not hound, but father of a town. And as sun rose over Wyoming hills, Dusty Hollow knew its fight had only begun. Caleb Boone had stood against Horace Blackthorn's empire, shielding a town that feared it could never resist. He had carried children from fire, faced the ghost of war in Vance Crow, and refused the silver chains of wealth that demanded graves be traded for gold. Beside him, Martha Lee, once mocked, now stood unshaken, her courage anchoring him when the weight of betrayal nearly broke him. And the people, who once whispered doubt, now began to believe that freedom was worth more than comfort. One night after the fire, a boy pressed a charred schoolbook into Caleb's hand and whispered, "We still got words to learn, Sheriff." Caleb could not answer, only gripped the book as if it were heavier than steel, knowing that survival itself was a lesson worth keeping. Yet what is the true price of standing tall, when one man's refusal can save dignity but put an entire town at risk? Is it braver to yield for safety or to fight knowing ruin may follow? Tell us your thoughts below, because your voice keeps Dusty Hollow alive. Leave a comment with your answer. Subscribe so you won't miss the next story, and share this tale so others may ride with us. For in the end, the lesson is simple. Land, memory, and dignity cannot be bought. They must be guarded, even when the cost is everything.